Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into something that, let's be honest, almost every single human being wrestles with at some point: overcoming shame and guilt. We're going to break down these really heavy psychological barriers using a brilliant ancient framework. It's a powerful parable from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15. The insights hidden in this historical text offer an absolutely incredible roadmap for fighting grace.
I want to speak directly to you for a second. If you're carrying the weight of past mistakes, or if you've ever looked around at a situation you created and thought, man, how did I get here? How did I fall so low? Well, you are definitely not alone. It's a deeply universal human experience. And the ancient story we're looking at today, which is often called the parable of the prodigal son, speaks directly to that exact moment of devastating clarity. It makes this ancient text profoundly relevant to what we experience right now, today.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. The weight of wandering. Facing the reality of our mistakes.
The story actually kicks off with a younger son making a really bold, honestly almost insulting move. He demands his inheritance early. He gets it, and he just takes off. And the truth is, we all have moments where we squander the gifts, or the resources, or the relationships we've been given, right? We wander off looking for something better, and it is wild how fast things can unravel. The downward spiral is steep. First, he demands the inheritance. Second, he goes out, parties, and squanders absolutely everything. Third, a severe famine hits the land, plunging him into extreme desperation. And fourth, just to survive, he hires himself out to feed pigs. Now, you really have to understand the context here. For the Jewish audience listening to Jesus tell this story, feeding pigs was the ultimate rock bottom. Pigs were considered completely unclean. So he wasn't just broke, he was culturally and spiritually utterly degraded. And it gets even worse. He reaches a point where he is so incredibly hungry, so desperate, that he literally wants to eat the pig food just to survive. But it's amazing to think about the reality check he gets right here, sitting in the mud. He realizes that even his father's hired servants have food to spare. They are living better than he does out in this strange territory. So he decides to pick himself up and head back, planning to just beg for a job as a servant. That brings us to Section 2, the barrier of guilt. What we expect when we seek forgiveness. When the son finally decides to return, he doesn't expect to be a son anymore. He expects to be a servant. And this perfectly illustrates a massive psychological barrier we face today. When we mess up, profound guilt just takes over. We become entirely convinced that we have to earn our way back to grace, that we have to grovel and pay for our mistakes before we can ever be accepted again. Our source material uses a really brilliant, blunt, earthly saying to capture this exact feeling. You make up your bed, so go lie down in it. We hear this kind of thing all the time, right? Sometimes parents say it, society definitely says it, and we absolutely say it to ourselves. The problem is, we take this harsh, human condition, the idea that you must suffer the consequences of your mistakes, and we project it onto God. We expect Him to give us a terribly hard time.
So the burning question really becomes, will God actually welcome me back, or do I have to earn it first? Because of our guilt, we come burdened. We think we have to beg, plead, and somehow convince the Father that we can make up for our wandering. We just feel fundamentally unworthy of simple forgiveness.
Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast between our expectation and the reality. Just look at the expectation: groveling, being treated as a servant, facing anger. But then look at the Father's reaction. When the Father sees the Son from a distance, He doesn't wait for him. He runs to him. He embraces him. The Son starts his rehearsed apology, but the Father essentially interrupts it. He completely ignores the groveling, orders fine clothes for him, and throws a massive celebration. It's just pure grace.
All right, Section 3, the Father's reckless love, the unexpected response to our return.
When we turn back, the Father doesn't just stand on the porch with crossed arms, waiting for us to clean ourselves up. He runs to meet us while we are still messy, still smelling like the pig pen, and still far off. He doesn't just forgive. He completely restores our privileges and blessings as children. But you might be wondering, how far does this grace really go? Well, the source material challenges us to look at the true scope of grace. Often we accept that grace covers common faults, lying, stealing, things like that. But society draws a very hard line at grievous acts: kidnapping, violence, murder. Society demands righteous execution of justice and categorizes these offenders as other. Yet the profound message of this text is that God's grace is sufficient for absolutely everyone. No sin is beyond this grace. The Apostle Paul captures this brilliantly when he writes in Romans chapter 8. He says, "He is persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor anything else, not even our sinful past, can separate us from the love of God." Literally nothing can sever this unconditional love.
And the source actually uses Paul himself as the ultimate case study. In 1 Timothy chapter 1, Paul literally calls himself the chief sinner. He was a blasphemer, a persecutor, a deeply violent man. Yet he received abundant mercy. Think about that for a second. If the quote-unquote worst of sinners can be used as an example of Christ's immense patience, then the message is crystal clear. If God can save and restore him, he can restore anyone listening to this explainer right now.
So the crucial point is how we handle the internal resistance to this grace. Section 4, silencing the accuser. Overcoming the voice that says we don't deserve it.
To really understand this, we have to look at the older brother in the story. Historically, Jesus used this brother to represent the Pharisees, the rigid, religious folks. But for us today, the older brother represents our own inner accuser, or the judgmental voices of society and religion that look at grace and say, "Hey, that's not fair. They don't deserve it." Let's map this out clearly. The accuser remembers every single past sin, but the Father forgives and restores. The accuser demands punishment and fairness. The Father runs to embrace with mercy. The accuser withholds fellowship out of pride, refusing to even enter the house for the party, while the Father invites everyone to the celebration. The older brother perfectly mirrors how we sometimes relentlessly punish ourselves and look down on others.
But notice how the Father responds to the older brother's bitter indignation. He doesn't condemn him either. The Father actually leaves the party to go outside and meet the older, prideful brother with the exact same compassion. He tells him, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours." It proves this beautiful reality. There is absolutely no scarcity of love in God's kingdom. He doesn't have to take affection away from one person just to give it to another.
Let's move to our final section and see how this all comes together. Section 5, Embracing Sufficient Grace. You are never too far gone. I want to bring the focus right back to you. The truth is, at some point in our lives, whether we came to faith at age 5, 15, or 50, we have all been the lost son. We have all been in need of immense mercy. But as the psalmist captures so beautifully in Psalm 139, "If I make my bed in the depths, you are there." I want to reassure you right now, no matter how dark or deep your personal pig pen might feel today, you cannot outrun grace. God's Spirit is already right there with you in the depths.
So I want to leave you with a deeply personal question. If you're feeling burdened by guilt right now, feeling like you've squandered way too much or wandered too far, what if the only thing keeping you from complete restoration isn't some massive penance, but simply choosing to turn around?
The source material closes with an altar call, and its message is the exact thought I want to leave you with today. Child of God, you are not too far from God for Him to reach you. Just turn around. The Father is already looking for you, ready to run. You just have to make the choice to face home. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.